Did you write that ending, Ethan?
Yes.
It was so sad.
Well, actually, the tune was written, and then the
You're
name.
so happy. Everything's going along.
Well, you know,
swimmingly.
sometimes things aren't what they seem. That's all I have to say.
When you went in and this is new material, the record that you recorded was recorded how long ago? Do you remember?
We recorded it last October.
Okay, so it hadn't been that long.
Not too long.
But when people go in to record records, it's often the case that those things have been kicking around for a long time. So some of the songs on your current record are probably getting old for you.
Sure, and also we're going to be recording a new record in October, so it's time to start giving some options. Start try to figure out what we want to do and give it a lot of road time before we go into the studio.
Somehow, what you managed to do was to pick someone to help help you realize your music. You did an album before this current one, a small label that I've never heard. This record was done by a fellow, Chad Blake, who's a well-known producer. You could tell us more about him in a second. But how does someone like a Chad Blake or a producer affect the ultimate sound that comes out on the record? Like, if you were to compare, there's some songs similar on those records. How would they sound different? Dave, you want to start?
Well, I think the easiest thing to say is it would be clearly superior, not so much different.
Okay.
Chad Blake is, in my opinion, the greatest living engineer. I mean, we're really big fans of all of his work.
And you heard his work on
everything from
Los
Lobos, Elvis Costello, the new Peter Gabriel record, American Music Club, Latin Playboys.
And you went and actually record this record at the Real World Studios, which is the studios in England.
Peter Gabriel studio, yeah.
Must have been a nice room.
It was nice. And it was great. He came in while we were eating dinner one night, and everyone at the table looked up, and Ethan didn't know it was Peter Gabriel. So that was another great...
One day he's going to show you up. Because he's going
to show us up.
Because some great dancer is going to walk in.
Yeah. He's introducing himself as Pete, so Ethan just thought it was like Pete the gardener or something. So, but
come on, I just have to say that the temperature in the room changed. So I assumed it was Peter Gabriel. I didn't know it, but just because everybody suddenly had this expression and aura about them, I figured it probably was.
Yeah.
But then he pointed to Pete's plate and said, "Hey, are you going to eat that?"
How for someone like you, Reed, would a great producer bring out your sound? What would they do that would make because when you listen to this record, the bass comes way up front. It's sometimes kind of is a little nasty at you.
Right.
What is it about the producer that helps make that happen?
Well, I think the key word is sound. A great producer has a vision, of the sound that they want to achieve for the band, and especially somebody like Chad Blake, who's such a renowned and brilliant engineer, really plays the studio like an instrument. Mm-hmm. And he himself has an idea of what the bass can sound like. Often you'll go into the studio and the engineer is like, "Well, what do you want?" Mm-hmm. Which is fine, but in this situation it was really a pleasure to work with somebody who said, "Okay, well, I like to record the bass this way." He sort of envisioned what he was going to do with us before we even got to the studio.
Oh, so you sat down and he would just start recording, and would you go and come in and listen?
Well, he was working on tones with us. It wasn't like he was saying, "This is what it's going to sound like." He was giving us all of these options that you would never have gotten with someone else. He was telling us what he was doing. We can go this way, or we can go that way, or somewhere in the middle. And we would just listen, and we trusted him so much because we're all such big fans that it became this obvious thing that let's just let him, kind of realize what we know we want. Mm-hmm. We knew he knew, and it flowed from there. It was incredible.
Yeah, and when we were playing in the studio, the sound was so inspiring. I think that we played a certain way because of that. And he wasn't really giving us direction musically, but he gave us direction in that more subtle way, but more profound way, just through the actual sound of what we were playing.
And it's not like it's greatly affected or anything. There's not a lot of wizardry going on.
Right.
It was
Well, that's
more
the
like,
thing. There's
it was more like very pared down and very real. He wanted the idea of the energy to really transfer to the tape and to have it kind of crunch a little bit and be a little nasty. And, you know, what it would really sound like is what he said, standing in front of a group playing very aggressively. It's not going to sound all pretty and warm all the time. You know, your ear is going to react a different way. He's really into capturing.
and if you didn't like part of a take, would you go back and do a little bit of it, or would you retake the whole song? How did
We didn't edit anything. We went complete takes. And, you know, it's not like we're really like hardline purists in that way, but I mean, you know, most of the greatest jazz records, or a lot of them, have been edited in some way, or where we just went in with the idea that this is a group sound and something we've really worked on together, and we would prefer it to be like you were there. It was exactly what happened without any edits or anything.
When you listen to, well, I don't know what you all, I knew what you two now grew up on, and you played, Ethan liked to play a lot of jazz standards. Are there songs that if there was a radio station that you were going to run, or one that you grew up on that would play things that you liked, what would be some of the, pick me a tune that you'd either love to hear when you turn on your radio and get in your car, or something that you grew up on that was profoundly gotcha.
Well, I can think of something that would represent a really important piano trio record, which is, I don't know if that's the best term for this instrumentation. You could also call this a drum trio or a bass trio. But
well, in your case, or which the record you're about to tell me about is
well,
basic?
it's also that instrumentation. Okay. And one of the things about it is it's a couple of interesting things about it is that it's first of all a Duke Ellington record, but it's also a Charles Mingus and Max Roach record, and there's a great tune on it, a ballad called African Flower, which is an incredible piece of music, but also quite remarkably for a musician who first started making records in the 1920s. There's a sort of a group dynamic present that's quite amazing, you know. And I feel is
so we're talking about the Money Jungle CD.
Yeah, I'm talking about the album Money Jungle and the tune African Flower. I mean, there are a lot of good things on Money Jungle, but I think this is the best tune, and you know, it's a forerunner of the Bad Plus, in my opinion. That's
interesting. Let's hear a little about it. Hear a little of it, and then we'll talk a little about it. This is Fleurette Africaine from the Money Jungle.